Yeah, week 13. Here we go. Bills and Patriots tonight. And we have 8 games to talk about on today's show. Going to be a lot of good start and sit stuff and some running back discussions, obviously, as well as we'll talk about the Jets. We'll talk about the Steelers backfields and a lot more. I'm Adam Azer. I got Jamie Eisenberg and Heath Cummings here. Any chance of a Patriots upset tonight? What's the chance of a Patriots upset tonight, Jamie? Give me a percentage.
15%.
Heath, percentage.
35.
All right. 25. I'll say 25%. We'll go right in the middle there. All right, you know what? Let's rock and roll. Let's go right to it. Jamie, start of the week. Who we starting?
Trevor Lawrence. Really excited about his opportunity coming off what you could say is maybe his best game of his career when he threw for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, led the comeback victory against the Ravens, 30 fantasy points, back-to-back games with 24 fantasy points, taking on a Lions team that allows the most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks, 3 quarterbacks in a row, over 26 fantasy points. I think Trevor Lawrence is in a good spot right now, and it's going to be interesting to see. I asked Heath, I think it was Heath and Dave, maybe, this question the other day. Of the 4-7 teams in the AFC, who is the most likely to make the playoffs, if any of them do? And I believe I have the names correctly. It's Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, Raiders. Maybe one more?
I
think that might be it.
Okay. So 4-7 teams, you said?
4-7 teams in the AFC.
Okay, that would be, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Indianapolis. Say them. Jacksonville, and the Raiders.
Yeah.
Who's most likely?
We didn't say Indianapolis because I think they're actually 4-6-1, right?
No, they're 4-7-1. They have another
4-7-1. Okay,
my bad. Yeah. They're not 4-7. I'd say Cleveland.
Yeah.
With Deshaun Watson.
Cleveland feels the most likely, but I'll tell you what, Jacksonville looks like their offense could be dangerous if this continues for him.
Yeah. Well, they gotta win this game. They're not gonna win the division, like I said, but they gotta go get this win. Heath, who do you love? Heath? What happened? You can't hear him. How can he not hear me? He's moving. Hi, Heath. Jamie, you hear me?
I hear you.
I was frozen, man.
You weren't frozen. That was the weird thing. You were frozen on your
end. You guys
end.
were frozen on my screen. I apologize. I assumed I was.
No, that was great. Who do you love, Heath?
I'm glad I could bring a little bit of humor this morning without even knowing I was doing anything. More and more, I love Garrett Wilson this week. And we talked about earlier in the week, is he a top 20 wide receiver rest of season? And when we have those debates, I'm always interested when I go through the projections process, is going to be a top 20 wide receiver for that week. And he's actually pretty close to a top 15 wide receiver for me. I love this matchup against Minnesota because it has the 3 facets of what the Jets seem to need to have a good passing game. First off, they are much better against the run than they are against the pass. That's 2 things. And then they're going to score a bunch of points because they have a good offense, I expect. So I do think this is a game where we see 35 plus pass attempts from the Jets. And the way that Mike White targeted Garrett Wilson, I think you should expect maybe 10 of those passes to go to Wilson, which could make him a top 12 wide receiver this week.
The only thing I would disagree with, I think it'll be a good game for Garrett Wilson. I don't think the Vikings are scoring a lot of points. This Jets defense is fantastic. And so I think Cousins, I'll just say this is the player I don't like this week. Cousins, I don't think he's going to have a big game. I think he's going to not get his second touchdown. He'll have some yards, but this Jets defense has proven to be very tough to move the ball on. And I think we'll see it be a frustrating game for Cousins, even though it's the right setup for him. Although after he performed well in prime time last week, I don't know if there's a wrong setup for him anymore. But in any event, this has nothing to do with Wilson. I just think that the Vikings offense, they've been bad running the ball. Jets run defense has been great. And I don't think we're going to get the multiple touchdown game from Cousins this week.
Yeah, it's weird. If not for that Bills game where the Jets did a great job against the Bills and Josh Allen was not hurt in that game, not until the second to last play. If not for that game, I really think I could look at the Jets schedule and give you who have they played? And I do believe in their defense, but this is going to be one of the better offenses they've faced so far. They faced they faced Skylar Thompson when they faced the Dolphins. You know, they they've had a pretty favorable quarterback schedule, I guess. But all that said, okay, here's the stat of the game I had for that game since we're talking about it. The Jets have allowed 3 touchdown passes in their last 8 games. That is insane. But who have they faced? Pittsburgh quarterbacks, both of them. Skylar Thompson, Aaron Rodgers, that was good. Brett Rippon, Mac Jones twice, Josh Allen, and Trevor Siemian. So I'm very intrigued to see what the Vikings can do. And I know the Jets have a good defense. You can't fake it for that long. The question is, do they have an elite defense, I guess? Maybe we'll try to find out in this game. All right, so we're starting Lawrence and Wilson. Jamie says he's avoiding Kirk Cousins. How about you, Heath? Who are you avoiding this week?
I'd like to avoid Dameon Pierce. It's a great matchup against the Browns, and there's a lot of uncertainty outside of the top 18 or 19 running backs this week, so it's hard to rank Pierce too low. But he has absolutely no floor at all right now, and I'm not sure he has very much upside either. The teams are just stacking the box against the Texans, saying, prove you can beat us with the pass, and you know what? The Texans can't beat them with the pass. So I think there's a possibility he could give you a 25 total yard game with no scores. I'd like to get away from Pierce if I can, still have him ranked as a high-end flex.
I wonder, though, if this is like the Texans Super Bowl. We're going to do whatever we can to win this game.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure it is. Yeah.
You just, they don't want to win. I mean, that's painfully obvious. They do not want to win. They want that number 1 overall pick to control, I think, their choices of what they have. And clearly quarterback is got to be a priority. But it just feels like if there's ever a game to sell out for, this could be the one.
Yeah, that's what Dave was talking about yesterday. There's just a lot of buzz about the game in Texas. And the good news is, what'd you say? Well, he was saying, because he was talking to his dad and, who lives there, and it was a nice little personal story. But even if the Texans do win, they still have, they're 1-9-1. There's no team with fewer than 3 wins other than the Texans. So they can win this game and still preserve the Bryce Young.
Oh, I don't think they'll win. I think they actually might try, though, which is something they haven't seemed to be doing in quite a while.
Yeah. Okay. So does anybody have Dameon Pierce in their top 20 this week?
He's close for me. I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with Heath. I think it's tough to trust, but it's a great matchup. It feels like it's a pretty decent situation. Rex Burkhead is in the concussion protocol, so one less guy to take him off the field for however many snaps that he may come off the field. So yeah, I don't mind Dameon Pierce, but I'm certainly nervous about it.
Okay. Would you start real quick? I'll finish on that. Pierce or whoever the Steelers starting running back is?
I go Warren over Pierce in PPR and Pierce over Warren in 9.
Heath?
Right now, I think I have Pierce over the Steelers backs, but I would like to have Warren over Pierce. I may just make that change.
Hey, folks, if you want to follow all the action, of course, you need to get the CBS Sports app. I got a great email from one of our listeners saying, try the CBS Sports. This is the truth. Try the CBS Sports app. It's amazing. It's so much better than the old one I was using. It's so clean, this and that. And yeah, I agree. It is really a great app. I'm on it every single night checking scores. And you can also follow all your if you're making your bets, your gambling action, you can follow all of that on the CBS Sports app. We got lightning fast live scoring for every pro and college football game and all major sports, of course. I've been following the World Cup, of course, on the CBS Sports app. You can get your breaking news alerts there. You can watch live sports. You can watch CBS Sports HQ on the CBS Sports app and stay on top of all the latest updates. And it is totally free if you have an iPhone, if you have an Android, and it is the easiest way to keep your finger on the pulse of every game that matters. So that's the CBS Sports app. The other thing I want to tell you about is Paramount Plus. Incredible programming on Paramount Plus. It is awesome. And we're giving away a free month if we can get to, let's say, 250 likes today. Can we do that, people? 250 likes, and we'll give away a free month of Paramount Plus. Let's check the like tally right now. We are at 54. We've got plenty of time. So we can get there. Let's do it. 56, 57, keep it going. And we have a question. Who would you start at quarterback this week? Geno Smith at the Rams, this is a poll, not a question from the chat, a poll for you YouTubers. Geno Smith at the Rams, Deshaun Watson at the Texans, or Lamar Jackson, who left practice yesterday with an injury. We'll check on that against the Broncos. Guys, who are you picking? Geno Smith, Deshaun Watson, or Lamar Jackson?
I would take Geno. Followed by Lamar for now, and then Deshaun. But if, Pete Prisco keeps saying Lamar just doesn't look right watching him on film, that he wonders if the hip injury has been a problem for him. Now you have the quad injury, so is he just, not at 100%? His receivers stink, aside from Mark Andrews, who obviously hasn't been Mark Andrews. So you just wonder if there's just a lot at play here. I think if we had seen a game of Deshaun Watson, it'd be easy to say Watson going against the Browns. Going against Texans.
Heath, who you got? Geno, Watson,
Geno.
or Lamar? Geno. All right. Okay, let's do some news and notes here. Lamar Jackson left practice with a quad injury. So, gosh, if you have Lamar Jackson, you're not going to start Mac Jones. We have better options than that, right?
You'd rather start Huntley than Mac Jones.
I think Josh Allen would be good.
Yeah,
well,
should start Josh Allen over Lamar Jackson tonight.
Aaron Rodgers is expected to play this week. However, he is open to shutting it down if the Packers are eliminated from playoff contention, which they pretty much would be with a loss. If they win this game, then they go into their bye with 5 wins. They're still probably alive. Matthew Stafford's not going to play this week against the Seahawks and the Bears. Remember, Trevor Siemian played last week, but he got hurt in pregame warmups. So the Bears,
weird.
Yeah, they signed Tim Boyle, and they signed Tim Boyle as Fields and Siemian are both dealing with injuries. So we'll check on that throughout the week.
I read somewhere that it might have been on NBC Sports Edge that they expect Fields to play, which I thought was surprising.
All right, we'll cross our fingers. We'll hope for that against the Packers. That's where Packers stands. Running back news: J.K. Dobbins practiced. Don't expect him to play, but he's back practicing. Najee Harris, it's not a serious injury. Jaylen Warren expects to play this week. We don't know about Najee, but we know Warren expects to play. We're going to talk about that game shortly. Michael Carter missed practice. So as of right now, safe to say we're not expecting him. They haven't ruled him out, but not expecting Carter as of now, right?
We're not ranking him. I did see something where they said he did not practice Wednesday, but they were still hopeful he could play. So I wouldn't say for sure he's not going to be out there. I don't think it'd be tough to start Knight over Singletary if he gets in a partial practice today.
Okay. Joe Mixon practiced. Oh, by the way, the Jets currently owe the Jaguars a 6th-round pick for James Robinson. If Robinson rushes for 185 more yards this year, it becomes a 5th-round pick. So they certainly have incentive not to play James Robinson.
Yeah, I think Prisco said that he wouldn't be surprised if they cut James Robinson. And he said, would it be funny if he went back to Jacksonville?
Yeah, that could work. All right, Mixon practice. He's working in the right direction there. Josh Jacobs was limited. We know it's going to be kind of, they had a walkthrough yesterday, but he was listed as limited, Josh Jacobs.
You spent a lot on Samir White in one league.
I did?
Like $12.
I think that is the league I really need 2 wins. I think I'm 5-7. So, but I think there's definitely a chance Samir White's the best running back.
Oh, no, I don't. I mean, look, you could be buying yourself a win.
And not just that. How unrealistic is it that at some point Jacobs shuts it down if this injury gets worse? And not just that. You're going to say, all right, Josh Jacobs, or if Zamir White gets the job, he doesn't have the 3rd down role. He won't catch passes like Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs has 40 catches this year. 38 of them have come on 1st and 2nd down. So you can still catch passes in that offense, even if Amir Abdullah is getting the 3rd down work. Doug Peterson says he feels good about Travis Etienne playing. Okay, I'd like something a little bit more concrete, but at least that's optimism. Raheem Mostert is expected to play. That sucks. Sorry, Raheem, for fantasy. That's not good. Mike Boone returned to practice for the Broncos. Again, he may not play, but he's eligible to come back now. Jerick McKinnon missed practice with a hamstring injury. Wide receiver news: Jamar Chase preparing to play. Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler missed practice. Mike Williams missed practice. Romeo Doubs was designated to return off IR. Jamie, if Romeo Doubs, if and when he comes back, does that take the shine off either Lazard or Watkins?
I would think more Lazard than Watson at this point.
Watson, sorry. Yeah.
Watson's just, how would they get away from him? It's not like he's getting, double-digit targets on a weekly basis. I can't imagine that he's going to go under 6 targets per game. Like, you got to feature that guy.
Juju Smith-Schuster missed practice with an illness. Kadarius Toney missed practice with a hamstring injury. Dallas opened up the 21-day window for James Washington. Von Miller said, and then it was confirmed, Odell Beckham is going to visit 3 teams: the Giants, the Cowboys, and the Bills. The Cowboys appear to be the front runner. The Giants obviously have the best Super Bowl chance, so he should probably sign with them. Zay Jones was limited with a chest injury. Should be okay as of now. Jacoby Myers is questionable for tonight with a shoulder injury. Is there any hesitation, Jamie, about Jacoby Myers? Is there a chance that he may not play?
It sounds like he's going to be. He sounds like he's going to play. I would have hesitation just about starting him because less than 100%. You've seen the production the last 3 weeks, and this Bills defense is obviously very good.
Okay, more wide receiver notes here. Chase Claypool was limited. That's it, just Chase Claypool. He was limited with a knee injury. He's facing Green Bay this week. Dallas Goedert, tight end. All right, if you can stash Dallas Goedert, he's the best. Stash him. He's 80% rostered, and he could be back after 2 more games. He expects to be back. David Njoku has a new knee injury, so his status is up in the air for this week. Kyle Pitts is out for the season. Daniel Bellinger could be back this week. I'll try to finish up quickly here. Offensive line news. Teron Armstead is almost certainly not going to play for the Dolphins. That's a huge deal. We'll give you the stats.
I thought that he was going to try and play.
And then I saw that he's almost certainly out. But yes, they haven't officially ruled him out, but I'm not expecting him. I assume you're not expecting
I was surprised with the report that he was going to try and play through this. So I would imagine if he's playing through this, he's playing through this in a very limited capacity. So it's tough to trust. I'm a little nervous about this Dolphins offense this week. You're not benching the 2 receivers for sure. I think Wilson, if Mostert plays, you might be able to get away from, but you have to have some good options to do that. And Tua, I mean, I don't know how much of it was Armstead leaving the game against the Texans when he got bent backwards and started getting hit, and that's why Mike McDaniel took him off the field. But my goodness, against this 49ers front, that could be ugly.
It was that. I mean, Dave sent me this note yesterday. Teron Armstead missed most of week 5 and all of week 6. In those games, the Dolphins allowed a pass rush pressure on 52.3% of their dropbacks. All 4 sacks came last week with Armstead out of the game. I mean, in limited sample size, it has been
Tua was sacked 4 times, or Skylar Thompson was
Tua was sacked 4 times. All without, I think so. I've got even more notes on that. I'll tell you that when we preview the game. Chargers center Corey Linsley and right tackle Trey Pipkins missed practice. So we love the Chargers this week at the Raiders, but they're beat up on the line. The Giants could get 3 starters back this week on their offensive line, which would be nice. Key defensive news, Colts cornerback Kenny Moore is out this week, and perhaps for an extended period of time. He's a great cornerback for them. That's the Colts. Chicago safety Eddie Jackson's out for the season. Baltimore looks like maybe might be getting a little healthier in the secondary. CJ Gardner-Johnson unlikely to play for the Eagles.
I thought he's out for the rest of the season.
Is he? All I saw was that he missed practice.
He has a lacerated kidney.
Yeah, I didn't see that he's out for the season.
Yeah, I don't know playoffs, but I think regular season.
Okay, I don't know why there was a report that he missed practice then. Seattle
Well,
safety.
if they don't want to put him on IR, then they have to keep designating his status.
Yeah, I just don't know why anyone would talk about it then. But Seattle safety Ryan Neal is questionable, and that's when Ryan Neal went out of the game yesterday or on Sunday. His backup came in, took a terrible angle on that Josh Jacobs touchdown run in overtime. Aaron Donald out this week. All right. Oh, but the Bills tonight, the Bills are probably getting 2 pass rushers back, AJ Epinesa and Gregory Rousseau. Sorry for the long injury
Those 2
update.
equal Von Miller.
Yeah, they're not as good, but that is very important for them. One question for each game. Here we go. Heath, Chiefs at Bengals. Pacheco, start or sit?
I would like to get away from him. I think this is going to be more of a passing game than a running game for the Chiefs. I think he is one of many running backs in that touchdown-dependent flex range. He's one of the guys I've not moved ahead of Dameon Pierce. I would definitely start Pierce over Pacheco.
So, do you think we can get him to put the A in his name? I can't. The spelling Isaiah is very tough. He's the only one I know that doesn't
2
have
questions.
Okay, my bad. Cleveland at Houston. Jamie, start or sit Deshaun Watson?
I would start him if you do not have a better option. And I know that's a cop-out, but, I think if you're comparing, I like him better than Cousins. I like him better than Rodgers because of his injury. I like him better than Russell Wilson. But I think Watson's in that. So just to frame it, we have him on our site from Sportsline projected for, I think, a top 5 quarterback last time I looked. I think that's a little too aggressive. But I do think that there is the chance for him to have, and we had this discussion on HQ. Keith, I think, has him for 1.5 touchdowns. I asked Pete Prisco for a stat line. He said around 270, if I'm not mistaken, Heath, and 2 touchdowns. I think that puts him in the 10 to 15 range. With the hope that he's on the positive side of that if you're starting.
And we don't know what he'll do in his first game back as a rusher either, because 270 and 2 with what he normally does as a rusher might put him in the top 8 discussion. But
yes.
If he's more of a pocket passer, then it would be in that 10 to 15 range.
I'm starting him in 3 leagues. One is as a Kyler replacement. One is ahead of Garoppolo, and one is a super flex league where I don't have Kyler also.
I'm going to go out on a limb. I feel pretty confident in this Azer stat. I don't think the Texans have allowed a top 5 finish to a quarterback all season. Highest I can find right now, just quick glance, is QB8, Jalen Hurts. So that's interesting because they've seen the fewest pass attempts.
It's really silly, but it's true.
Yeah.
Which is the best kind of Azer stat.
Yeah, there you go. Silly but true. That's at Minnesota. Heath, are you feeling it?
I am not feeling it. I think he is a touchdown-dependent flex outside of my top 36 wide receivers. But if you start 3 wide receivers in a flex like we do in a lot of our leagues, then I think you might be flexing them.
Jamie, follow-up question on this because it has to be asked. What scenario gives you your highest ranking of a Jets wide running back? Like Michael Carter out and it's Knight, or Michael Carter in and it's Carter, and where would that running back be ranked?
Right now, Knight is 24-ish in both formats. 23 maybe in one, 25 in another. Depending on how some of the touchdown-dependent running backs I have. So I might have him ahead of Jamal Williams, I think, in PPR, and right behind him in non, something like that. I still would probably rank Knight higher than Carter because I don't think Carter will be 100%. And so I think then we get the dreaded 3-headed backfield because I think Ty Johnson's going to have his opportunities as well. So I probably would go Knight, Carter, Johnson if Carter plays, and all 3 of them would be 30 or lower.
Okay, got a comment here in the chat. Azer stats give me a headache from Rushman. Take some Advil, baby, because they ain't going anywhere. All right, next up, Miami at San Francisco. Heath, starters at Jeff Wilson with Raheem Mostert expected to play.
If Dameon Pierce is the line of demarcation, then I would say he's a start because I would play him over Pierce. But he was definitely in the low-end number 2 range, and I could absolutely see that there are a lot of people out there who have 2 running backs they'd rather start over him. So certainly not a must-start with Mostert.
If Mostert plays and Armstead's out, I'd be very, very scared of Jeff Wilson.
There are 2 very important Armsteads in that game, by the way, Azer stat, because Eric Armstead is also going to play for the 49ers, and I will give you the numbers when he has played. He has made a huge difference. Okay. Chargers at the Raiders. Start or sit Zamir White if Josh Jacobs is out, Jamie?
I would start Zamir White over Zonovan Knight if Josh Jacobs is out.
What about over Jeff Wilson and Dameon Pierce?
I'm already starting Zonovan Knight without Michael Carter over Jeff Wilson. I would start Dameon Pierce. I'd probably start Zamir White over Dameon Pierce if there is no Josh Jacobs.
And over Zonovan Knight.
Yes, I have Pierce over Knight right now.
Okay. So if Josh Jacobs is out, you would go Zamir White, Pierce, Zonovan Knight.
Yes, and I would start Jalen Warren over all of them.
That is so interesting because that game is coming up in a second. Hold on. Denver at Baltimore. Heath, Cortland Sutton, last 3 games without Jerry Jeudy. Jeudy played 1 snap in one of them. He's been 13-ish PPR points. He hasn't been a top 24 wide receiver in any of those 3 weeks. Now facing Baltimore starter sit Cortland Sutton.
I don't think he's going to do a lot better than what he's been doing, but I do think he can get pretty close to it. I think he's a borderline number 2 wide receiver. And in fairness to him, like if he's scoring those 13 fantasy points and never scoring a touchdown, that tells you that he's got the upside to get to 19 or 20, but I don't think that's going to happen in this matchup.
Should have had one last week.
It's just so hard to project a touchdown when Russell Wilson's averaging less than 1 touchdown per game.
Come on, he's got 8.
Marlon Humphrey scares me.
Yes.
Right. I mean, he really did a great job against Christian Kirk last week. Like Sutton, I'm trying to get away from him. Who am I going to start over? I'm going to start Josh Palmer over him if Mike Williams doesn't play. I think that's my one Sutton decision. Garrett Wilson, I'm starting over him. I think that's you guys would definitely.
I agree with Garrett Wilson. I don't think I'd probably get all the way to Palmer.
I like Palmer better than two.
Obviously contingent on Mike Williams, right?
Right.
Tennessee at Philadelphia. Miles Sanders, Devontae Smith, or Treylon Burks? Who's the best flex in a very interesting game, Jamie?
Miles Sanders, Devontae Smith, and Treylon Burks, is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
In PPR, I'd go Smith, Sanders, Burks. In non-PPR or half PPR, I would go Sanders, Smith, Burks.
And finally, Pittsburgh at Atlanta. You both can talk about this because I think you might disagree. What's the backfield split look like if Najee Harris is out? Jamie, you seem high on Jaylen Warren. Does that mean you're not expecting much from Benny Snell if Najee's out? What's the split look like?
I think Snell will supplement him. I think also there might be a chance Anthony McFarland gets a couple of touches as well. But everything that I've read seems to think like from the media, this isn't from Mike Tomlin, that the Steelers want to see what Jaylen Warren looks like in a starter's role. So I think this is Jaylen Warren's opportunity. The fact that he's not even on the injury report, I think, is a great sign for him. I mean, go back, a month ago, 3 weeks ago, it was Jaylen Warren's going to set for a larger role. Well, now he has that opportunity for a larger role. I don't think Benny Snell coming on in relief of Najee Harris is going to change what their approach was going to be for what Warren's role was. And remember, prior to him getting hurt, he was taking significant snaps already. So I think it's a unbelievable matchup. And, if he's the guy, to whatever extent he's the guy, 60%, 70%, 80%, 55%, there's a chance for him to be a really good fantasy option because the Falcons stink against running backs.
Falcons do stink, and Warren is definitely my favorite Steelers running back. I think I maybe have a little closer split between him and Snell in the running game, but Warren pretty much dominating passing downs. He's somewhere between 24 and 30 for me at running back right now, and Snell's not in my top 30.
All right, I want to tell you something, though. This is the last game we're scheduled to talk about. That's going to be about 2 hours into the show at this rate. I want to give you this thought on this backfield here. And Atlanta, you say they stink against running backs. They don't always stink against running backs, but the three guys on 4 separate occasions who have had
6
big
in a row, though, 18 or more points.
Yeah, they do give up a lot of points, but when it comes to just yards per carry or rushing totals, they don't always stink. They do give up touchdowns. So you're right. They have a bad defense, and that helps because they give up touchdowns. But look at the 4 guys who have really creamed them in the run game. Nick Chubb, Deontay Foreman twice, and Brian Robinson. All of them have had 105 or more yards. Foreman did it twice. What I noticed about them is those are big bruisers. And I'm not sure if that's anything. But that is more Snell than Warren, obviously. And it would be Najee Harris if he were going to play. So I did notice that the only running backs who have really crushed the Falcons on the ground have been between the tackles. I mean, Chubbs obviously can do everything, but between the tackles, bigger guys. I
guess the counter to that is what would Gibson have done, who's the smaller of the two? Not that he's not bigger than Warren because he is, but what would Antonio Gibson have done if he got in that work?
Well, I think Gibson had like 13 carries. He didn't have a good game. I can't really do anything other than to look at yards per carry. I know it's not the best thing, but it's the only thing I got. And Robinson was much better than
I think to me it's more about the work that those guys had as opposed to necessarily the size of them.
Yeah.
Gibson had 9 carries.
9 carries, sorry. There have been some running backs who have been in like the 14, 15 carry range and haven't done much at all on the ground against the Falcons. And just noticing the ones who have been really good have been the bigger guys. But all right, I assume nobody's going to care about that. It's kind of a reach. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about, oh my God, I cannot decide the game of the week. First of all, this is an amazing slate of games. And unfortunately, they're pretty much all on this episode. We're going to have to figure out a way to talk about one tomorrow with Dave. But could be Kansas City, Cincinnati. That's the first game we're talking about when we come back. All right, Chiefs and Bengals. I talked about Juju playing in the slot last week and only playing 38% of the snaps overall, and none of that was good. How about the Bengals? They have seen the 4th fewest wide receiver targets in football, and now it is going back to week 4. Week 4 was the last time a wide receiver had more than 7 targets against the Bengals. That's wild. And
you don't need to be a wide receiver against this team.
What's that?
For the Chiefs.
What'd you say? Chiefs
don't need a wide receiver.
No, it's but I need Juju here. Okay, I really need some Juju. Should I start him, Jamie?
He's definitely a starter in 3 receiver leagues. I mean, that goes without saying. I think it's just a matter, again, of who you are comparing him to, who's on your team. He's just outside my top 24. I'm a little bit concerned about the usage last week, the fact that he's still dealing with an illness now. So whatever Andy Reid was thinking, does that carry over because they have so many different bodies to use? So, I think Juju's a good start. I don't know if he's a great start. Again, who do you compare? Like for me, I have Juju in one league. I'm playing Christian Watson over him. That's an easy one for me.
Are you Sutton Cortland for Juju?
I have them back to back right now with Sutton one spot ahead, but I will definitely make that switch if Juju's fine.
What were the games where Juju played more than 40% of his snaps in the slot?
One moment, please. It was the Chargers game. He scored 4 points. The Bucks game, he scored 9.6 points.
Can you give me weeks? I'm sorry. I'm just trying to figure out because the Chiefs have had many different things that just randomly pop up during games at random points during the season. And in the very next week, it has no correlation to what just happened last.
Weeks 2, 4, and 5. And then last week against the Rams.
Okay. Yeah, the only thing I can say about that period of time is that was when Juju was not 100% healthy.
Yeah. I mean, I think
he was on the injury report basically for that whole month.
It's also when Mecole Hardman was not productive.
True, and obviously Mecole Hardman's not going to be productive in this game. He's out. All right, so Juju is number 2-ish wide receiver.
Number 2-ish is the perfect way to put it.
Okay. Mahomes is a start. Here's your LOL stat of the game. Jacoby Brissett is the only quarterback to score more than 18 points against the Bengals. Good luck, Patrick Mahomes. Pacheco or replacement running back?
Steelers replacement, Jets replacement, potentially Raiders replacement.
Yeah, in full PPR, I would start Knight over him for sure, and I'll probably get there with Warren as well.
I guess let me just ask you more broadly here. Are there any surprises in this game? I mean, Juju's going to be a tough call. You're going to start all the Bengals that usually start, I'm assuming sitting Tyler Boyd. But Heath, are you going to make a case for Sky Moore or Hayden Hurst or Tyler Boyd himself or Watson or anything like that?
I don't really want to make a case for those guys, but I don't think they're all just completely ignore, fade, stay away. I think Hayden Hurst is right at towards the top of that touchdown-dependent streaming tight end just because he's playing in a game that's going to have projected to have more points than any other game. So you're playing with a great quarterback in a high-scoring game against a bad defense. Even if he has no floor at all, he has just about as good a chance to score a touchdown as anybody that's not in our top 7. So he's a top 12 tight end for me. I think Tyler Boyd, as miserable as he's been, is still a low-end boom-bust number 3 wide receiver because of the same things I just said about Hayden Hurst. And it might even be better for him that Jamar Chase is back and there's not very much attention. He can make another one of those big plays he's made this year. Sky Moore is behind him for me.
And what kind of
I am hopeful Jerick McKinnon's healthy because I think this could be a Jerick McKinnon game.
Very much.
Oh man, Jerick McKinnon has 2 games this year with more than 3 catches. One of them was the Tennessee game when Mahomes threw 68 passes. Just really hasn't done much of anything. But we're hoping for a lot of points. And with that said, which Bengals wide receiver do you like better, Jamie? And are you comfortable starting both of them?
Absolutely comfortable starting both of the top 2. And for right now, still T. Higgins, just because whatever is limiting Chase, it's still limiting Chase. But they're both top 10 receivers.
Okay, I just want to know if Chase was must start. He's not going to be as high as he usually is, but top 10 for you. Okay.
Yes.
Heath, Chase is what for you?
12, I think.
I'm not going to overcomplicate this game. Then you know who to start. Pacheco is a guy to avoid. Juju number 2-ish. Hayden Hurst. Everybody.
Pacheco will be very interesting if McKinnon is out because will they throw Ronald Jones in there? Will they throw Melvin Gordon in there? It's going to be curious to see what they do if McKinnon can't go because he plays such a vital role for them.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, Cleveland's at Houston. Stat of the game. Deshaun Watson used to play for the Texans. Also, Houston has seen the fewest pass attempts in the NFL. And that's really what it is. It's like we know Houston's not that good defensively. They're one of the worst in yards per attempt allowed, but they just get run all over. Cleveland can run the ball. So it's just a matter of how does Watson do with probably limited pass attempts. And I just want to say one thing. I mean, I'm just going to leave all the off-field stuff out of it. I've gotten some comments. Like, obviously, I don't like talking about Deshaun Watson.
Just talk football. That's all I got to worry about.
It's not, so we're just going to talk football. Exactly. And we have to talk fantasy. So, all right. Deshaun Watson, Heath, give me your thoughts on him.
I think that he has a ceiling every bit as high as what Sportsline projection is for him, which I think is QB5 or QB6. There are just enough extenuating circumstances that make me a little bit cautious this week. He is very close to 12 for me. I kind of bounce around with a couple of guys at that QB12 range. I would start him over Rodgers. I would start him over Tom Brady. But I do think there's also the risk that the first half of this game, or even the first entire game he plays, he has a lot of rust to knock off. He's not played a real football game in almost 2 years. And the very little bit we saw of him in the preseason did not look like Deshaun Watson. We don't know how much Kevin Stefanski is going to have him run in his very first game back. And we do know that the Browns, if they chose to do so, could win this game without throwing a forward pass. So there's enough things that I'm concerned about that he's not ranked where his upside is, which is as good as almost anybody.
Why are you guys starting Watson over Rodgers? Just because Rodgers is so beat up?
Yep.
Yeah, I think if Rodgers is 100% healthy, well, I mean, I take that he's playing with a broken thumb. If Rodgers is fine with the rib injury, it would not surprise me if he's better. But I think he said something there that stands out the most. Upside. We've seen kind of Rodgers, his best games have been kind of 23, 24 points. Mm. He lives in that 19-20 range. Would not be surprising if that's what he did, because he already did that against the Bears. I think for what Watson could be, there's a better chance of that.
I just think that Rodgers has more upside now because of Watson.
I mean, if we're going to play they can run all over them card, clearly without Roquan Smith and Eddie Jackson and why am I blanking on the pass rusher? Their defense is just not
Robert Quinn.
Yeah, their defense has not been the same.
No, that's the thing. I mean, he has an amazing matchup. Right. The Bears are a layup.
And if you had a quarterback who had the ribs in the situation of Rodgers and you wanted to prevent, the Bears probably can't hit him anyway, but why not just throw the ball 25 times and win the game by 2 scores?
All right, fair enough.
Maybe that changes at Fields' place and they have to score to keep up.
We'll stick with the Browns here because I mean, we've spoken a lot about Dameon Pierce. Dameon Pierce is not a top 20 running back for these guys this week. If the matchup were tougher, he might not even be a top 30 running back, but the Browns are so bad against the run. They give up the second most fantasy points to running backs. I think these two teams are clearly two of the worst against the run. We'll come back to the Houston wide receivers in a second briefly, but Nick Chubb's a must start. Any interest in Kareem Hunt, guys?
I think that if you're stuck, this is a good spot to go back to him. Because again, it's a game where if they do what they want to do offensively, and like Keith said, if they don't want to throw, they're not going to put 40 carries on Nick Chubb. They'll give him 20 to 25, and then they'll probably be 15 for Kareem Hunt if that's the route they want to go. So I would not be surprised if he plays well.
All right, but he's not a top 30 guy, is he?
No. He's behind the replacement guys. He's behind Pierce. He's I look at him and AJ Dillon kind of similar because I think you're going to get similar matchups. Similar opportunities. Dylan's coming off a good game, So, to me, the guys you're debating with Kareem Hunt in terms of starters, like Cordarrelle Patterson, I could see Hunt being better than Patterson this week.
Yeah, nobody's dropped Kareem Hunt. He's rostered, I think, in about 90% of leagues. So let's just see if Deshaun Watson likes him and targets him. And maybe this helps, but sit him. All right, Cleveland wide receivers. Heath, Amari Cooper's on the road. It's not a neutral site game like that game against the Bills. Starter sit Amari Cooper.
I may end up looking like the biggest dummy in the world, but I'm mostly just ignoring it, and I'm starting Amari Cooper.
What about Donovan Peoples-Jones?
He did used to live in the state of Texas, so maybe that helps.
Oh,
it's true. Yeah, he has played home games in Texas as recently as last year.
That's true.
So feels like home. I kind of like what you said about Kareem Hunt. I want to see how Deshaun Watson. I think there's probably a loser and a winner coming out, and we may not figure it out in this game. but I really don't believe that David Njoku and Donovan Peoples-Jones are going to be as good as the best we've seen from both of them. That month-long stretch from Njoku, the month-long stretch from Peoples-Jones, I think one of those guys will lose out. But I don't have a good guess on who's going to be the number 2 option for Watson, because for most of his career, he didn't have a number 2 option. He just did what Derek Carr and Aaron Rodgers did and just throw the ball 40% of the time to your best player.
All right. So Peoples-Jones is someone we're to try to avoid. And then
the thing, though, I would not be surprised based on what they were doing when they were at their best, where there wasn't a lot of touchdowns between those two guys. Like I can still see Peoples-Jones in that 11-12 range, which, as you alluded to before, Heath, and I agree, there's a touchdown away from being a great game for Cortland Sutton, same thing. So I would not be surprised. And the thing about it is clearly Deshaun Watson's a better downfield thrower than Jacoby Brissett is in his career. So maybe those opportunities open up a little bit for Peoples-Jones. And then Njoku, again, he certainly scored more touchdowns than Peoples-Jones has, but, he could still be a 60, 70-yard type of tight end and still be very much sustainable and startable in PPR.
I looked at the games where David Njoku, was playing a normal snap count and was good. And basically, Donovan Peoples-Jones typically had a good game when Amari Cooper didn't. And that was road games. So you can buy into that.
I would think that part of that, though, is why 3 guys are not sustainable is that's Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah, but we're not expecting a ton of passing in this game.
I don't know. I mean, this could be feature your new toy. Like this for a team that's 4-7, where we did say they have the best of that group to be a playoff contender, but most likely they're not making the playoffs. Deshaun Watson, I would imagine, for everything that's gone on with him from a football perspective, this is the game that he's been circling for a long time.
Oh yeah. All right, so Njoku, if he plays, you guys have him in the top 7. Would you start Njoku or Kittle?
Njoku as of now.
Yeah, let's see if he's 100% healthy, but as long as he is, it's him over Kittle.
Now, if Deebo Samuel doesn't play, I didn't even mention Deebo Samuel, but he's on the injury report. So we'll keep an eye on that. So last thing here, Brandon Cooks, Nico Collins. What are we thinking? 10, 11 fantasy points from these guys?
That's where they live.
Would you start Peoples-Jones?
Nico over Cooks, though.
Okay, Nico, Peoples-Jones.
Peoples-Jones for me.
I've got Nico higher. They're in the same range.
And the Browns DST is top 6 this week. They're 55.
I don't like the matchup, but I would keep an eye on Jordan Akins. They've benched Brevin Jordan. You saw last week in the first game with Kyle Allen, 5 catches. He did have the fumble, but he was certainly a big part of this passing attack. And if they're going to chase points most weeks, Jordan Akins could end up being somebody that in a deeper league could help you.
Now let's go to the Jets and the Vikings here. The Jets, as I mentioned, they've allowed 3 touchdown passes in their last 8 games, and a lot of easy competition there, but still very good. Would you start Kirk Cousins or Derek Carr this week, guys?
Carr.
I'll go with Carr.
All right. Derek Cousins or Kirk Cousins or Jimmy Garoppolo?
Cousins.
Cousins over Garoppolo.
All right. So I've gotten a lot. No, 2 questions and within like half hour yesterday. Should I start Mike White over Lamar Jackson? I said no.
Wow.
What are your expectations, Heath, for Mike White?
It's like he, again, has a very wide range of possible outcomes. I'm expecting him to be a high-end QB2. I have not considered him over Lamar Jackson. I have considered him like over Tom Brady in that range. But I've just got him behind him. He's around QB 18 for me. I think in this situation, if he ends up throwing 35 or 40 passes, he could end up with 300 yards and 2 touchdowns and be a top 12 quarterback again. But also, like, there is implosion potential, as we've seen from Mike White before.
Yeah, I got to give him credit. Yeah, he was obviously very good last week. He was great in his first start in 2021. And then the second game was right after that. He only threw 11 passes, but he scored fantasy points. Yeah, he did pretty well in those 11 passes.
He was on fire, yeah, before he got hurt.
And then he came back the next week and he threw 4 interceptions and scored 2 points against the Bills. So I would say in 3 of his 4 starts, He's been pretty good, even though one of them was only 11 passes, but he did play well. Minnesota's so bad against quarterbacks. Mike White or Jimmy Garoppolo?
Garoppolo for me, but I think he's a wild card, Mike White. I think if you're in a tenuous situation with your quarterback, you don't have Kyler Murray, you don't have Justin Fields. You've been kind of playing the quarterback roulette game, depending on, the Russell Wilson, Matthew Stafford fantasy manager has been begging for help. This is the perfect guy to say, okay, I'm going to go YOLO and hope that he goes out and has a big game.
All right, Jets running backs we've discussed already. It's a tough matchup. I mean, they give a lot of receiving production, 5th most receiving yards per game to running backs, but running backs are averaging 3.76 yards per carry against the Vikings. I mean, they're just very good against the run. So that's not good. But these are like low end number 2 guys, I suppose, and it gets even worse if Michael Carter plays. So it's interesting. I mean, you do want to pick them up, and we said it on Tuesday. It's not necessarily a this week thing for Zonovan Knight. I know people are going to have a lot of questions. So if Michael Carter's out, would you start Zonovan Knight or Cordero Patterson?
Knight.
Gus Edwards.
Gus.
Zonovan Knight or a.
You know that Gus Edwards is from Liberia?
No,
I learned that yesterday.
I didn't
He
know
was
that.
born in Liberia.
How about Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson, Zonovan Knight?
You know where Gus Edwards started his college career at?
I do know that. That was Rutgers.
No.
Finished at Rutgers.
Jeez, wow. Oh my gosh, I have to quit the show. I can't believe I just said that.
Well, it was a good run.
All right, Brian Robinson or Zonovan Knight if Carter's out.
Robinson.
Jets wide receivers, Garrett Wilson is top 18 in both formats. Elijah Moore, I think, has been picked up in perhaps too many leagues. I don't know. It was 26% yesterday. He barely played. You guys aren't starting Elijah Moore, are you?
We're not.
I'm starting him in a couple of deeper leagues, yeah.
Tyler Conklin or Hayden Hurst?
I like Conklin better.
Conklin.
All right,
Revenge game, baby.
11th, 10th, 11th in the rankings for everybody. He just needs 5 or more targets, basically. He's been pretty good when he's gotten 5 or more targets, but there's only been 6 games where he's done that. All right, Kirk Cousins is, around 14th thing-ish. We've said start him over Garoppolo, over Mike White, sit him for Derek Carr, sit him for Trevor Lawrence, for Deshaun Watson. And we'll see. Jets are giving up the 7th fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks. Dalvin Cook. You guys do not have him in your top 12. Heath, who would you start over Dalvin Cook?
I would start Ramondre Stevenson for sure. I'd start Travis Etienne as long as he's fully healthy by the end of the week. I'd start Rashad White.
If Fournette doesn't play or either
If Fournette doesn't play, not if Fournette plays.
How about, I'd see you have Tony Pollard ahead of him. Is that going to stick?
Currently have Tony. I don't love the situation for Dalvin Cook.
And Jamie
I would start both Cowboys running backs over Cook.
Yeah, how about that? All right, and you know what? You guys have him around 16th. Guess where he is for the season? He's 15th per game in PPR, 13th in non-PPR, and simply just doesn't have that many touches. 16 carries per game, 16.2. That's his lowest since 2018. All right, Minnesota.
Him or it's Kevin O'Connell has not been good for him.
I think so. I think they're more pass heavy. You look at his rates; he's basically as good as he's ever been. He also doesn't get a lot of catches this year. Start Jefferson, and Thielen is what, Jamie?
As Heath said, a number 3 receiver. Not a slam dunk by any stretch.
Okay. The Jets are allowing the 3rd fewest points to wide receivers. Hopefully this isn't a bad game for Jefferson. TJ Hawkinson or David Njoku. I know you guys are high on Njoku. Would you start him or Hawkinson?
I would start Hawkinson, but that's close.
Hawkinson.
All right. So that means he's a must-start guy. And the Jets DST is okay. Miami at San Francisco. Okay, here's your stat of the game. Yes, Tua Tagovailoa with Teron Armstead in Week 12. 234 yards and a touchdown. 25% pressure rate, no sacks. Tua without Teron Armstead. He threw 8 passes. He was sacked 4 times. How could he have been sacked 4 times on 11 dropbacks with 8 passes? Probably 7 passes, 12 dropbacks. But a 54.5% pressure rate compared to 25% with Teron Armstead. Already
Where'd
gave
you
you
get that
from True Media.
Okay.
San Francisco is 16th in pressure rate, but in the 3 games that Eric Armstead has played this year, they've been top 6 in pressure rate all 3 games. So there are a lot of things working against the Dolphins in this game, specifically up front. And what does that mean, Jamie, for Tua, for Tyreek Hill, and for Jalen Waddle?
You can't bench the receivers because, it's one big play. They're certainly capable of that. There's touchdown potential across the board. Clearly, the weakness of this 49ers defense, if there is one, is their secondary. And I know it's not a weakness, but it's just worse than their run defense. And so, again, they're probably not good DFS plays, but I'm still starting both Hill and Waddle, and I probably haven't ranked too high. Tua is still ranked as a number 1 quarterback. I'm not going to get cute and start Watson over him, for example. I'm not going to start Mike White over him. I'm just going to take my chances with what has been an MVP candidate and certainly a breakout quarterback this year. But I do think there's reason for concern. This 49ers defense is great. They're going to make things uncomfortable for him if Terron Armstead was 100% healthy. So we're going to find out how Mike McDaniel knows his former team. There's obviously a lot of crosses, revenge factors here, with the coach, the running backs from Miami, and the 49ers knowing, I'm sure, what they want to do. But just in terms of the Dolphins offense, I think there's reason for concern just looking at this defense and the situation with their best offensive lineman probably not playing.
Yeah, so you're starting Burrow over him. The thing about Tua is this is actually an elite quarterback that you might have some other great option with, right? I mean, because he was dropped in a lot of leagues or a late round pick. So Jamie, have Burrow among others, Herbert, Hurts, Trevor Lawrence, Geno Smith ahead of Tua. Heath, you're not quite there. You have Tua 5th ahead of Herbert, ahead of Geno, ahead of Trevor Lawrence.
I've moved Herbert ahead of him. So,
okay.
But that the rest of the guys, yeah, I have the same concerns. It's just that I don't think Geno, those other guys have anywhere close to the same upside that Tua has.
Jeff Wilson right now, is he really top 16 or is that without?
He's around 20. We don't have Mostert ranked yet.
Okay.
So,
okay. No, I updated rankings. Jamie has him 26 and you're going to put him at 20-ish.
Yeah.
All right. So you guys would start, say, Zeke over him?
I like Zeke a lot more than Jeff Wilson.
A little more.
DeAndre Swift?
I would not.
I'm not there yet, but I wouldn't be surprised. The fact that Swift is practicing in full again is a pretty good sign.
Okay. Mike Gesicki's a sit. And Jimmy Garoppolo is about 15th. I think you guys said you have more.
You keep asking Cousins and Garoppolo. I really struggle with that one.
All right. So right now you have it Cousins, Garoppolo, Mike White, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Heath, you have it Cousins, Garoppolo, Mike White with Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady in that mix too.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah. I mean, look, it's obviously it's a good matchup. The Dolphins give up the 4th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. But
I'm going to change my answer. Garoppolo over Cousins.
But you know what? Look at the quarterbacks who have done well against them. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Kirk Cousins, Justin Fields. It's not like they're giving up big games to bad quarterbacks. And Garoppolo is kind of right in the middle. He's not bad, but he's not Burrow.
Yeah, the more I think about it, it's not so much about Garoppolo. It's more about my fears with Cousins.
Okay. Heath, would you start? Give me the running back situation for the Niners. Obviously, McCaffrey's a start. If he plays, is there another guy you'd consider? If he doesn't play, what do you do with Mason, TDP?
Oh, well, and Tevin Coleman. Especially if he doesn't play. I think Tevin Coleman would mess that whole thing up. I don't have another 49ers running back that I want to use as long as McCaffrey plays. If McCaffrey was out, I don't think I would have a 49ers running back ranked in my top 30. I think I would rank them Coleman, TDP, Mason.
Okay, but it's an avoid.
I would like to avoid it if Christian McCaffrey's not playing. That could be a huge thing for Debo if Debo is able to play.
All right, so then let's finish with the San Francisco wide receivers, Jamie, and break it down. Do you like these guys this week? It's kind of weird. The Dolphins give up so many points to quarterbacks, but not that bad against wide receivers. They're 13th. So, yeah, Ayuk and Debo, who aren't getting a ton of targets. What do you think?
I think what Heath said is very telling about the running back situation. I think that without the second guy there, if Debo's healthy, that he's going to – you all right?
Yeah, I had to turn the heat off. It's getting like really hot in here. I'm losing consciousness. Like,
I think Debo's going to get more work in the run game than he's had the last couple of weeks because that's probably who they feel the most comfortable with. But I have it Ayuk over Debo in PPR, Debo over Ayuk in non-PPR. Both guys low-end number 2 receivers, but you're not setting them.
Ooh, let's do Juju Smith-Schuster or a Niners wide receiver.
Niners receivers for me.
I've got Juju, then Debo, then Ayuk, but they're all very close.
Sutton?
49ers receivers.
Sutton, Juju, Debo, Ayuk.
Half PPR, Isaiah Pacheco or a Niners receiver?
Both Niners receivers.
All right, so Jalen Warren or a Niners receiver?
Niners receivers.
Yeah.
All right. And George Kittle. It's like he's one of the tight ends, Heath, that you're just probably, you said there's like 7 tight ends that you're just starting. Is he at the end of the list?
I think he's almost like the Gabe Davis, Christian Watson of tight ends. You know that it might not be fun, but the upside's way too good. I think he has 3 games this year with 18 fantasy points. Any tight end who gets to 18 fantasy points 3 times in a season is just so securely locked into your lineups that you can't even. So yeah, he's one of the guys I'm not questioning, but I also know he might score 6 this week.
Man, I don't want to put too much into Teron Armstead, but I feel like you could make the case that Teron Armstead's absence is going to impact every single player in this game. Because if the Dolphins don't score the way they usually score, then you might have another 28 to 30 pass attempt game for Garoppolo. If the Dolphins come out and put up 30 points or 25 or more points or something like that, you might get 35 to 40 pass attempts from Jimmy Garoppolo. And that's obviously a huge deal for everyone. And I don't know how you guys feel about that, but that's basically been the problem. Last week was an exception. Jimmy Garoppolo actually threw a decent amount last week with them actually pitching a shutout against the Saints. But for the most part, he's throwing 28 passes, and that sucks for everyone. George Kittle barely ever gets more than 6 targets. You're not usually getting more than 7 or 8 from Debo and Ayuk. You're hoping.
I think we'll find out how much they like Tevin Coleman, TDP, and Jordan Mason, because that's probably going to be what sways how their offense operates. Because I don't think they're going to put, especially if McCaffrey's got a knee irritation, they're going to put 30 carries on him. And so if they really want to see who's the second guy, because they probably have to figure that out, then that's going to be, I think, how many attempts Garoppolo has.
Sydney in our chat is asking Kittle or Hayden Hurst.
Kittle.
Okay. Kittle or Pat Freiermuth.
Freiermuth.
Yeah, Muth.
Niners DST low end starter this week. Okay, let's take a break. We still have, I think, 4 games left, so buckle up. Chargers Raiders when we come back. And we're back on Fantasy Football Today. Here is the Does This Matter stat of the game. Derek Carr has been very good in his last 4 games. In those 4 games, he has thrown, Heath, I'll give you this one, 6 touchdown passes of 25 or more yards. That is the most of any quarterback in that stretch. That's a lot. And does that matter? And the only reason I ask, it doesn't feel sustainable. And I would like for Carr to be on this hot streak with something sustainable. I'm wondering if maybe this means his production's a little fluky. What do you think?
I think it matters a little bit. I wouldn't call it, I don't know if I'd go quite as far as fluky, but I don't think it's something that you can necessarily live on if you're in that 20 to 22 point range with those things happening. Now, he have 26 last week? He was better last week. So he would have maybe been at 20 without one of those, or 19. But I am a little bit worried that this could be a game where he comes back to earth. But he's right in that Kirk Cousins range, and I think you start him over Cousins because he's not facing as good a defense.
But you wouldn't.
It's also an over/under of 50.5. I mean, there's going to be a lot of points in this game.
You wouldn't start him over Tua, would you?
Oh no.
Getting close.
Okay, and you guys have Watson 1 spot ahead of Derek Carr. You have Lamar Jackson 2 or 3 spots ahead of Derek Carr. So basically, you have a four player range of Dak Prescott, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, Derek Carr is last. The other 3 are ranked so differently for you guys. But he's ahead of Aaron Rodgers. He's ahead of Cousins, Garoppolo, Tom Brady, etc.
Right.
I think last week's game was pretty good for him from the standpoint of got behind early with the interceptions, rallied, didn't necessarily have to get it all from Devontae Adams, And, that's the nice thing about, I think, where Derek Carr's game is at right now, is that, he started to correct himself with just doing the Rodgers and throwing to Adams all the time. And then now you're seeing Mac Hollins a little bit more. You're seeing Foster Moreau a little bit more. You're seeing Josh Jacobs involved in the passing game a little bit more. So there's different guys emerging, which is nice. And then who knows, because, Josh McDaniel said that, they're not sure, but, we might get both guys back next week, and Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow, and Derek Carr might end up being a guy you can rely on toward the end of the season.
Okay, so knocking out this game somewhat quickly here, we've got a lot of must starts. Justin Herbert is a must start this week. The Raiders are a layup. Austin Eckler is a must start. Josh Jacobs is a must start if he plays. True or false? Keenan Allen is a must start.
True.
Yeah.
Devontae Adams is a must start. What about Josh Palmer? And what about Mac Hollins, I guess? I know they're different, but
and DeAndre Carter.
What about the wide receivers, Jamie? Then Heath, tight ends.
Foster Mero.
Jamie, you give me the wide receivers. Heath, you give me the tight ends, and then we'll talk about Zamir White.
Josh Palmer is a must start if Mike Williams is out. DeAndre Carter and Mac Hollins are number 3 receivers if needed. Not must start number 3 receivers, but in that range. In the Donovan Peoples-Jones, Paris Campbell, Nico Collins range. I would start them both over Traylon Burks, for example. Who else? That's it.
Okay. And Heath, the tight ends.
Yeah, and I think I am quite a bit different on Gerald Everett than everybody else, but I mostly would like to avoid him. He's at the bottom of the possible starters for me this week. I just worry that he fits a lot better on a receiving core that's missing one guy if the guy who's missing is Keenan Allen and instead of Mike Williams, because Williams does that downfield stuff and Allen works in the same area of the field. Foster Moreau I do have ahead of Gerald Everett, but not someone that I really want to start. Neither of these guys top 12 tight ends.
Let me ask you just a few more questions about guys like DeAndre Carter and Mac Hollins, just for the desperate managers. I'm assuming you'd start Zay Jones over them.
100%.
Yeah.
How about Adam Thielen?
They're close. I'd start Thielen, but they're close.
Yeah.
How about Nico Collins or DeAndre Carter or Mac Hollins?
I would start both those guys over Nico.
I would start Nico.
Okay. And Zamir White would be ranked where if Josh Jacobs were to miss this game?
18 to 22.
I'm going to say 25. 18 to 22 and non 25 to 27 in full.
He'd be my favorite replacement running back if Josh Jacobs were out. What do you think about that, suckers?
I mean, I don't think that's a huge stretch since you're talking about Jalen Warren maybe sharing with Benny Snell and Zonovan Knight sharing potentially with Ty Johnson. So yeah, I don't think that's the hottest of hot takes. So, but it's certainly worth keeping an eye. We could get to a situation where Jalen Warren, Zonovan Knight, Zamir White, and JaMychal Hasty and maybe a 49ers guy are very, very popular this week.
Hasty actually might be the best if ETN is out. I just feel like ETN is going to play. But the Chargers, a running back has gained 89 or more rushing yards against the Chargers in 8 of their last 9 games. They are absolutely dreadful against the run. And that stat that I gave earlier, that 38 of Josh Jacobs' 40 catches have come on first and second down. It also makes me think that if Jacobs is out, Zamir White could still get 3 catches. Even though
it also could be Amir Abdullah, and
so.
he's the one that they trust more. So it's kind of what I said on Tuesday about, Zonovan Knight makes more sense than Ty Johnson, but Ty Johnson may end up being better.
Also, Zamir White's averaging 4.7 yards per carry on 10 carries.
YPC for life.
Yeah, 10 carries. Denver's at Baltimore. It's the game of the week. No, it's not the game of the week. How about the Broncos defense, though? They're not giving up a lot of points in their last 3 games. 17, 16, 23 points in regulation in their last 3 games. But look at the big plays they're giving up. They've allowed, so in their first, they've played 11 games. In their first 8 games, they gave up 15 completions of 20 or more yards. 15 in their first 8 games. In their last 3 games, 13 completions of 20 or more yards. 4th most in the NFL in that span. And how about this? Since the Bradley Chubb trade, in their last 3 games, the Broncos are 28th in pressure rate, and they have 2 sacks. In their first 8 games, they were 4th in pressure rate, and they had 24 sacks. So it's not the matchup that it was based on the last 3 games. And Heath, what does that mean for you when you evaluate the Ravens, if anything?
No, I don't know that it does because they're not a normal offense.
Right.
Like, it gives me some hope that Lamar can hit one of those big passes and maybe Deshaun Jackson actually takes it to the house instead of what happened last week. But I'm concerned about this Ravens offense. It just doesn't look right. I don't know if Mark Andrews is 100% healthy. And they just continually, every week, leave 2 or 3 touchdowns on the board.
You're right.
Off
They
the
really
board.
do. Yeah. Jackson or Watson?
Jackson
for now.
Boy, this quad injury, though. I mean, how many things is he going to be dealing with? He's been so beat up. He's had an illness. Jackson or Tua?
Tua for now, but don't really love either one. It's more just hoping that they're at their best.
Who's the best running back in this game?
The Gus bus, baby.
Do you agree over Latavius?
Yeah, I've got Gus ahead of Latavius. They're not far apart though.
They've given up a 100-yard rush. The Broncos have 3 of the last 4. I think this is the easy formula for the Ravens to fix their offense. I mean, look what Chuba Hubbard or Deontay Foreman and Chuba Hubbard just did. Just run right at them. You want to talk about physical running back against defense. This is the perfect way to do it.
Yeah, it's kind of sneaky. The Broncos haven't really had a good run defense all year. They've had a great overall defense, but not so much against the run. All right, the Ravens, the passing game's easy. The only guy you're starting is Mark Andrews. Let's hope he comes through here. He's been on a little bit of a slump. So
where does he rank in terms of bust this year?
No, I don't think I'd call him that. Would you?
Yeah.
Well, it depends. Were you drafting with Heath and you had to take him early in the 2nd round, or were you drafting without Heath and you had to take him in the 3rd round?
I mean, he hasn't been what Wade hoped he would be, but if the number 2 tight end is a bust, then we've got a list that is very long of busts.
He's a bust relative to his overall draft value.
Is he? I don't know.
What's his points per game?
14.3. Are we going to count the game he left early with an injury? Because I could Azer stat it and make him look better.
I mean, according to you, sure, whatever you want it to be. What's his actual numbers?
14.3.
Okay.
Look at the first 6 games. He scored 23 or more points in 4 of the first 6 games. That's enormous.
I guess it just maybe I'm just stuck with some recency bias.
Yeah.
It feels terrible.
Yeah, but the last 2 games have been 11 and 12 PPR fantasy points, which is bad for him. It's still
and is also a top 5 tight end for the season.
11 or 12, right?
Yeah, the position's just so.
But I mean, I know what you're saying, but it's like you weren't expecting him to be in the top 5. Like you're expecting him to be clear 1 or 2.
Right.
All right. Gus Edwards is 18th for Jamie in PPR, 21st for Heath, 25th for Dave. Obviously, we know the problem. He doesn't catch any passes. Would you start Edwards or Devin Singletary?
Edwards.
Would you start Latavius Murray or Devin Singletary?
Latavius.
Latavius, but they're very similar.
Are you confident in any Bronco?
None.
Heath?
No, not confident. Sutton's my favorite.
Yeah. Sutton, we'll do a few more Suttons here. First of all, we have to, if Judy plays, they're sitting Sutton, right?
Yeah.
I'm already trying to sit Sutton, so yes.
Sutton or Gabe Davis tonight?
I'd go Sutton.
Sutton and PPR. Davis and none.
Cortland Sutton or an Eagles, Devontae Smith?
Smith.
Sutton or Slayton?
Sutton.
Okay. Next game. I think we have 2 left. Tennessee at Philadelphia. Woo! Think the Titans can win? What do you guys think?
I think they can win. I don't think they will, but I think they'll cover the 5.
Mike Vrabel's so good. I don't think it should be that close, but I'm not going to doubt Vrabel.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so stunned by how good they've been defensively since their bye. In their last 6 games, they're 3rd in yards per play. And I think a lot of people doubted it maybe going into that Bengals game. They held the Bengals to 20 points, I think. Burrow didn't even score 20 points.
With all that being said, I'm starting Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and I'm not really thinking about it.
The one that makes me the most nervous, though, Sanders. Just because he's going to need a lot of work. He's going to obviously need to score. I hope he's 3 catches again because that was fun to see, at least just the involvement. So this team just does not give up rushing touchdowns. I know they got one for Samaje last week, but it's just not something that you see happen very often from this team.
I think you should really think about the Eagles other than Jalen Hurts. I know you got to start him, and you're going to start Brown because he gets so many touchdowns and green zone targets and end zone targets.
Revenge game, baby.
Yeah, right, that too.
Well, Devontae has like a 37% target share since Goddard went left.
Yeah, what's he doing with it, though? It's crazy. He's a guy who has two green zone targets all year, so touchdowns are hard to come by. He just hasn't been that efficient. The green zone is inside that. We actually had a 1-star review on Apple Podcasts that said, "Stop saying green zone. It's not a thing." Pretty sure it is.
No, I will push on.
Ben Gretsch said it before I said it. So
that was me, by the way. I gave the 1-star.
Oh, so thanks, Jamie. All right, I just want to bring this up, all right, because let's knock out the Titans. It's just Derrick Henry, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Treylon Burks would be, boomer bust player. He's got 3 catches in his last 2 games or something that are more than 40 yards or something crazy like that. Here's what I looked at here. Jalen Hurts has thrown 25 to 28 passes in 6 straight games. In those 6 games, A.J. Brown has 67 or fewer yards 5 times, but he has 6 touchdowns. Devontae Smith has 50 or fewer yards 5 times in those 6 games. He does, however, have 8 to 9 targets in 4 of his last 5 games. Last 6 games, again, Jalen Hurts, 25 to 28 passes in all 6 games. A.J. Brown is the number 17 wide receiver per game. Even with that 3 touchdown game against the Steelers, Devontae Smith is the number 48 wide receiver per game in PPR in the last 6 games. One last thing, and then I'll let you guys talk. So, again, Jalen Hurts, not throwing a lot in the last 6 games. He has faced 5 teams in those 6 games that are in the bottom 6 in pass attempts per game seen. In other words, he's faced teams that just teams don't throw on. The Titans, on the other hand, have seen the most pass attempts per game in the NFL. So will Jalen Hurts actually throw more? I don't think he will. He just that's not his thing. And we need to reconsider, I think, the Eagles' passing game because there's just so little volume there. That's just my take on it. And the Titans have been elite defensively since their bye week. So discuss.
You're obviously starting A.J. Brown. I don't care who they're playing. Whether he's a number 1 or number 2 receiver, it doesn't matter. And I'm sure that this is, hey, Nick. I've talked a lot of trash about my former team. Let's dial up a few extra targets. Let's give me a few opportunities downfield. It feels like his downfield opportunities have certainly shifted since Dallas Goedert's been gone. I think for Devontae Smith, you're talking about a guy in the 3 games that Dallas Goedert either hurt, in the game that he got hurt and the 2 that he's missed, he's been basically 8+ targets. He's been 13 PPR points in 2 of those games. 1 touchdown, or 2 touchdowns in those 2 games. At least 1. I might be mistaken there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, 1.
But I think there's opportunities there against, again, the weakness of this defense, which is their pass defense as opposed to their run defense. And so if they can't run the ball, because last week it was, and I think if you recall, I said this, the thing that I read about the Colts game was that saved them in that final drive was they went back to their roots, as they said. They went back to running the ball, and it wasn't just all Miles Sanders, but they had success in that final drive. That carried over to last week. They ran the ball with a ton of success. That was a game you can run on, a team you can run on. This week, is it the same thing? No. So, I hope that they get a little game plan specific and get A.J. Brown going early, which has kind of been the case. He's usually been better in the first half than the second half. And Devontae Smith gets some opportunities as well. And hopefully Jalen Hurts throws the ball a little bit more. So I think you lean in. For me, I'm going to lean more toward the passing game than the run game for the Eagles. But I'm with Heath. I'm not benching Miles Sanders coming off a 30-point game. But I think hopefully he gets also 33 catches again, which would be nice.
Yeah, a couple of things. Like I still will challenge the Titans being elite defensively when it comes to wide receiver production, because while they've given up the 3rd most fantasy points this season to wide receivers, they've given up the 9th most fantasy points over the last 3 weeks. They've given up the 10th most fantasy points the last 5 weeks. They're still giving up a ton of fantasy points to wide receivers. And I think when you talk about Jalen Hurts' pass volume and the number, what Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown have done, you really need to separate the last 2 weeks from the prior 4, because the prior 4, they were chopping up those 28 pass attempts with Dallas Goedert, and he's not there anymore, and no one's replaced him.
That's true. But I would just say the Titans, the last 3 games, you said they've been bad against receivers.
Well, I didn't say bad. I said they've given up the 3rd most fantasy points.
Okay, 42, 39, and 37 pass attempts. I think they've been good, per attempt. They've been better. They're not giving up nearly as many big plays per attempt. It's just that teams are throwing so much on the Titans because they have such a great run defense. What strategy do the Eagles employ? And that's kind of what Jamie was talking about. They get a little more game plan specific. And all right, it's something to keep an eye on here.
Yeah, and I just don't know. Like when you look at T. Higgins had 114 on a touchdown on 9 targets. Like it's not because he had
Tyler Boyd was terrible.
Right. Well, Tyler Boyd had 4 targets. That wasn't a volume thing at all. Christian Watson scored 21 fantasy points on 6 targets.
Yeah, Alan Lazard was bad on 11 targets.
I mean, he had double-digit fantasy points still. Like,
all right.
Like, I mean, you can parse up the numbers, but they've not stopped receivers from scoring fantasy points at any point this season.
Okay.
If Jalen Hurts is under 30 pass attempts in this game, unless he's just hyper efficient and there's a lot of big plays, they're probably losing this game.
Maybe. Okay, then. So Miles Sanders or Devontae Smith, who's a better flex?
Sanders in non-PPR, Smith in PPR.
I'm waiting for Adam to ask the obvious
I don't
question.
want to get jaded by Sanders.
Half PPR?
I don't want to get jaded by Sanders' performance last week. He was bad the 2-3 weeks prior to that.
2 weeks in a row. Yeah, he scored fewer than 6 PPR fantasy points.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, finally, that's pretty much it. Gus Edwards or Miles Sanders?
I like Gus better.
Wow.
I definitely have Gus higher in non-PPR. I think it's more likely that Sanders catches 2 passes than it is Gus. I'll go Sanders in full PPR.
Tony Pollard, Ezekiel Elliott, and Miles Sanders. How do you rank them?
Both Cowboys.
I've got Pollard, Zeke, Sanders.
Oh, okay. Pittsburgh's at Atlanta is our last game, stat of the game. These 2 teams allow the most completions of 20-plus yards. Long show today, so let's do this one quickly, and I think we can for the Falcons, right? Jamie, give me the Falcons.
Yep.
Sit them all?
Yep.
Okay, the Steelers, I do think, give up the most fantasy points to wide receivers, but sit them all, right?
Good luck.
Olamide.
Okay. The Steelers, Heath, what do you think about the Steelers' passing offense?
I don't think it's as bad as the fantasy numbers suggest. They just don't have the touchdowns. I think that there's a decent chance that we're getting a good Kenny Pickett game, but you can't rank it like that because he's just not getting any help and they're not getting into the end zone. Pickett's a number 2 quarterback. I think he's my guy. I have right behind Mike White at number 18. Pickens and Deontay, I think, are both borderline number 3 wide receivers. I definitely prefer Pickens, and if they do give up the big plays, that should certainly help. I'm starting Pat Freiermuth.
By the way, we have reached 250 likes. Thank you to Thomas Schaefer for pointing that out. Sorry, I forgot about that. Please comment your Twitter handle right now, and we are going to give away a free month of Paramount Plus. Go ahead and comment your Twitter handle. What I'm going to do tomorrow is going to look at the practice reports with all the running backs, and we'll start the show talking about the 4 backfields that are sort of in flux right now: the Jets, the Steelers, maybe the 5, the Jaguars, 49ers, and Raiders. And we'll just talk about all the replacement running backs. But, right
you and I
now,
are doing F15.5 tonight, right?
Yeah.
We can do that then too.
Yeah. So right now, Jamie, the highest ranked running back you have for the Steelers is who, and where is he ranked?
Jalen Warren is between 20 and 25, depending on the format. I think he has the most upside of the backfield there. I think it's a great matchup. Again, even for a smaller running back against this defense, he should have the opportunity to make some plays. So 6 straight games with 18 or more PPR points allowed by the Falcons to a running back. So hopefully Jalen Warren does that for those of you that picked him up.
Oh, imagine if George Pickens had caught the 2 touchdowns that he should have had in the last 2 games, where he'd be right now in the minds of
He'd be Christian Watson.
Yeah. That's why I'm feeling DFS-y about him. But you know what? I kind of want to say it. I want to start him over Courtland Sutton. It's probably will be a game time decision for me. Courtland Sutton or George Pickens.
I don't think it's a bad call in non-PPR.
I'll go Sutton.
Yeah, just so few targets. 6 straight
Sutton
games.
is basically, you know what you're getting. You're getting 12 or 13 PPR points if he plays his best. If Russell plays his best, maybe he gets touchdown.
But I mean, I've really been impressed with the way the Ravens have done against some wide receivers, including
I'm with you.
against Kirk. All right, but you're going Sutton.
Yep.
And how about George Pickens or Zay Jones?
They're almost back to back, but I think Zay Jones has more upside.
I have Zay Jones higher, but it's one that I'm struggling with.
Steelers DST is 8th and 9th for Jamie and Heath, respectively. They've been good in very good in 3 or 4 games with TJ Watt. And that is it for these, not even AFC home games. There are so few AFC home games. I think there were like a lot of NFC home games this week, but that's it for this slate. 6 more games tomorrow and a recap of Thursday night.
What's the game of the week?
What's that?
What's the game of the week?
I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet.
I've got a bonus for anybody who's listened to an hour and 20 minutes in, Adam. I just saw this about tonight's game. The line opened Bills -5.5. It's now Bills -3.5. But 77% of the tickets have come in on Buffalo.
Interesting.
Do you care? That would tell you the Sharps are hammering the Patriots, I believe.
I'm going to take the Bills. I'm going to bet the Bills right now, 3.5. All right.
Okay.
I have lost 9 bets in a row. So let's see if we can even bet.
That was worth it.
Talk to you later, everybody. See you at 2:00 on our live stream, youtube.com/fantasyfootball today.